These streets may look like ordinary streets in China. Their lighting in the evening a bit too bright and loud. But do you know that this vast area of townhouses in northern Chinese city of Tianjin was once partly owned by American President Herbert Hoover? Even more astonishingly, Hoover was an American president who started his career here in China. For more stories, follow me on a tour to Tianjin City. First, let me quickly connect this video with today's international reality. Decoupling is a popular word that you might hear from here and there, both in policy discussions and in the news. It suggests that the US can unite Western countries to cut off all trade links from China and isolate China as a country. But have you ever considered that since the beginning of modern history in the 18th century, the ties between China, the US, and the world at large have actually been incredibly tight? Here's a little-known fact. As early as 1901, at the beginning of the 20th century, Herbert Hoover, who later became US president, actually did major business here in China and owned several blocks of real estate. So when it comes to deep ties with China, we have to mention President Hoover. Yes, the one who built the Hoover Dam. Not the J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI. Don't confuse the two. This Herbert Hoover wasn't just an American president. He also left behind a legacy of brilliant achievement as well as controversial scandals here in China during his early years. Well, somehow he played an important role to promote China's industrialization and urbanization of Tianjin. Hoover was born in 1874 and died in 1964. He was among the first graduates of Stanford University in 1895. 4 years after his graduation from university, in 1899, he was sent to China from Australia by a mining company. Legend said, although he traveled around the world for quite some time, but he was on and off based in Tianjin City for 15 years. Both he and his wife learned to speak Chinese, including Tianjin local dialect. Hoover earned wealth and experience from this city and China, and 30 years after his first arrival in Tianjin, he became the 31st president of the United States between 1929 and 1933. If you're watching this channel for the first time, I'm Uncle Chao. I'm an artist and writer. I write books and conduct art research in Chinese language. But I also want to challenge myself to make videos in English to document my travels, research, and work. This helps to put me in other people's shoes and to generate new ideas and inspirations for my writing and art. In the meantime, I also hope my videos can show you how a China-based local intellectual look at China and the world. Thank you for watching, and let's continue to President Hoover's story. Last week was China's National Day break. I dragged my artist friend Hong Wei to join me from another city for a day trip to Tianjin. We wanted to check out the city, museums and art galleries, maybe brainstorm a new collaboration as we had worked before on some art project. We wandered, chatted about Tianjin's history and totally forgot to film a typical travel vlog. But for the places we went, I kept stumbling across references to President Hoover. All the facts were not new, but the limited information around President Hoover in Tianjin City was isolated from each other, from the hotel Hoover stayed to the real estate he owned. Researchers on Sino-US history might know all this stuff, but most of the information is lost in public memory. After all, Hoover was president over a century ago. After some research online, I found out that no one has presented Hoover's story in China, linking historic sites together. So here we are today with this video. After almost half day's wandering around a small part of his old town of Tianjin City, I happened to video the 3 places that are related to Hoover. I did not know this intentionally since I had no idea about President Hoover before I came to visit this city. The dots and the threads about President Hoover just surfaced as we walked by the city. So I'm able to summarize his main activities in China with 3 places: a hotel, an office building, and a residential property. Stay tuned, and I will go through these 3 historic places one by one. When Hoover and his wife arrived in Tianjin in the year 1899, the newlywed couple stayed in the Astor Hotel, which is still operating and has a museum of the hotel inside it. Back at the end of the 19th century, Tianjin was North China's commercial, economic, and cultural hub, and a coastal port just 100 kilometers from Beijing. Remember the Opium Wars? In 1840 and 1860, British and French troops landed here from the sea and they attacked Beijing from here. After that, many unequal treaties were imposed on China, and Tianjin was among the first of all Chinese cities to open as a trading port, and that accidentally speeding up China's modernization. Historically, Tianjin was already a transport hub. All kinds of goods from South China flowed through its port via its Grand Canal to Beijing and further on to other parts of northern China. Post the Opium Wars, foreign concessions popped up everywhere in this city outside of its ancient city gate. Foreign concessions are kind of a territory, not an official colony, but however, it belongs to the foreign government. While within this encircled area or encircled land, foreigners are not subject to Chinese law. So foreign concessions popped up everywhere in the city. The still operating Astor Hotel was set up here. This modern hotel was built in year 1863 and it still has revolving door from that time. So this is the hotel that Hoover first lived and also wined and dined for many business functions. He was the first batch of graduates from Stanford University in 1895. Then he went to Australia to work in a mining company for mine explorations. 4 years later, he was only 24 and newly married to his Stanford classmate Lou Henry. Then he was posted by this Australian company to be based in Tianjin to do search for mines in China. The hotel museum still keeps a menu to receive the Australian mining company delegates. Of course, now I know that group was Hoover's contacts. Hoover scoured China for gold mines for that Australian company, crisscrossing many parts of China. Eventually, he kind of co-founded a coal mine venture near Tianjin. And get this company went public in London in 1912, selling shares globally. I had no idea about this, that China was participating in the global economy in this way by selling shares around the world. But like some foreign business in China at that time, it was dubious whether or not Hoover took some advantages of political connections or economic collusion. Anyway, the then Chinese government, the Qing dynasty, they sued Hoover in a court in London since the company was listed in London in the 1910s. And nearly 20 years later, when Hoover was running for US president, his opponent used this Qing dynasty versus Hoover case to challenge his integrity. Well, it doesn't matter anyway now, since it was more than 100 years ago. Speaking of which, let's move on from this hotel to see another building that's related to Hoover, an office building, that headquarters of that mining company. This is a very important building in China's modern history because that's one of the first Chinese coal mines when China trying to learn from Europe to start its process of industrialization. This is the headquarters building of the coal mining business not far away from Tianjin city. Around that coal mine, steel and iron companies were set up and railways were built. China's the major railway lines all passing through Tianjin city. Trains leave Beijing as the capital city and then all arrives at Tianjin. From here, trainways just diverted either to the north of China or to the south of China. By the 1910s, this Kailuan mine was massive. Look at their office building headquarters here, stood right downtown in Tianjin. When I passed by it, I didn't know Hoover was related to this coal mine conglomerate, but I recognized the name of the company because it was iconic in China's industrial history. So I randomly took some video. But while I was writing this story, I came to link it to Hoover and was surprised to see how industrialized Tianjin was back then. China's mining wasn't that backward, and Tianjin, wow, it was the Shanghai of the North China, second only to Shanghai, and was already one of Asia's biggest and most modern cities in the beginning of the 20th century. As trade and commerce thrived, Tianjin at that time had a sizable finance street. Next video, I will show you how HSBC, Standard Chartered Bank, and Citibanks, they all built grand office buildings here in Tianjin during the 1890s or before the beginning of the 20th century. Well, after this massive office building, let's take a look at the final building of the three that I want to show you. Indeed, the last one is a residential compound. Here is a wild find. A lot of Tianjin's old foreign-style or international-style villas and buildings were gone, but some of them were kept and renovated. And this one that used to belong to Hoover was newly renovated. The block of this building spanning 3 or 4 streets used to be a townhouse type of residence for one real estate developer. It has been updated in recent years and has become a popular site, especially for young people to gather for food and entertainment. Guess who owns this real estate development? You're right, Hoover was one of its stakeholders or shareholders. I'm not sure when he divested this business, but if the staff residence can be this big, well-designed, and upscale for employees in the 1910s, it must be a good business. Hoover expanded his main business of mining into property. That made a lot of sense, right? As one of Tianjin's top foreign businessmen of his time, Hoover rubbed shoulders with all these Westerners, either British, Americans, French, Italian, Russian, German, and Japanese, etc. People from all these countries, they all have their so-called concessions or encircled land territories in Tianjin. All these foreign concessions all need property developers. Those are the 3 buildings or constructions that were related to Hoover. And from a hotel, a business office, and a residential compound, you probably have got a glimpse of how President Hoover's life in China. He was also kind of based in Tianjin primarily for his Australian company, but constantly traveling around the world. It was an amazing era that people and business started to flow, truly international. After his life in Tianjin, what happened to President Hoover? How did his China experience help his journey to White House? Well, let's roll on. Obviously, the Hoover's family in Tianjin had fruitful years in many ways. The Hoovers lived in China on and off for 15 years, and 2 of the only children were both born here in Tianjin. But the money and the mining expertise he gained here were also important for Hoover's ambition and later career. While he was in Tianjin, Hoover founded a mining company in Australia that later evolved into today's global mining giant called Rio Tinto. This is one of the largest mining giants of today. Fun fact is, this British-Australian company Rio Tinto now exports half its Australian iron ore to China. This sounds interesting, right? A large amount of Rio Tinto's iron ores was exported through the port of Tianjin as well. Does this resonate Hoover's earlier link with China? It seems Hoover's Tianjin industrial legacy still going strong. Well, today we talk about trade wars and tensions, but this isn't new. Westerners played out similar stories in Tianjin, Shanghai, and Hong Kong, even cities like Chongqing and Chengdu, which I recently visited and made some videos. Cities like Tianjin turned 20th century humiliation into fuel for industrialization. Washington politicians should visit Tianjin, see how America's only Mandarin-speaking president developed a career from Tianjin, and build an international business network that is thriving even till today. Rumors has it that in the White House, Hoover and his wife spoke Chinese to each other so to keep conversations private. When will America get another president who could speak Chinese? Well, maybe at least the next US president-to-be should invest in Tianjin real estate or mining. That would be relatively easier, even though that might not guarantee that person to be American president, but very likely that could lead to a London-listed company, then accumulate wealth and power to head home as a hero. Who knows?
Welcome to Tianjin.